alright. I had a premonition that we fell into a rhythm where the music don't stop for life. Glitter in the sky, glitter in my eyes, shining just the way
Hello,
you
folks.
like.
Welcome to Google
If you're
Michigan
feeling like
STEM
you need a
Day.
little bit
We
of
are
you
just
miss me at the
making sure
same
the live
time.
stream is getting started. So give us one more minute.
You want me, I want you, baby. My sugar boo, I'm levitating. The Milky Way, we're renegading. Yeah, 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 yeah. I got you, moonlight, you're my
Alrighty, it looks like we're ready to get started. Welcome to Google Michigan STEM Day. My name is Sarah Comer, and I work in the Google Detroit office. I've been working for Google Michigan for 14 years. And one of the things that I do is volunteer with educational events in the community. So sometimes we do them in person. We bring people to our Google offices, but obviously this year is a little bit different. So we are going to do this all online. So thank you for being part of our first virtual event. So my pronouns are she or her. I identify as female. Like I said, I work in the Google Detroit office, and I work as an administrative business partner. So that means that I help our Googlers, which is what we call our Google employees, get things done and stay organized. And so I have to use a lot of technology and communication to make sure that I can do that well. And then I'd like to introduce my partner in crime, Jasmine.
Happy to be here, Tara. I'm super excited for the programming we have today. I am Tara's counterpart.
Just a minute, Jasmine. I can't hear you.
No problem. All good now. Thanks for bearing with us all. I am thankfully Tara's counterpart out of the Ann Arbor office. So we're so excited to have many school districts here with us today and many different students and community organizations. I also identify as female, and my pronouns are she and her. And I am a digitization operations manager, which means I get to scan books. And 80% of the books that you see online have been scanned by Google Books. So if you ever do any reading online, we are some of the folks that make that possible. And today we're here to learn about STEM and try our hand at some activities. All right, Tara, I'll hand it back to you.
Thanks, Jasmine. So we do have a couple of agreements that we'd like to ask of you all today. So the first one, we've already been practicing, right? Be patient. So like we said, this is the first time we're trying to do this event completely virtual. And so it might take us a little while to get all of the technology working the way that we want it to. So thank you for being patient and waiting for us to get that going. We really appreciate it. The other is if you are joining our Google Meet, so if you're in the meeting itself, please keep your microphone off so that it's easier for us to hear our speakers. But if you do have questions, please type them in the chat and we will get to them as soon as we can. So if that works for you on the Google Meet, please give us a thumbs up. Okay. Here is our agenda for today. So we're in the opening session right now. And as part of the opening session, we will introduce our site lead of the Google Detroit office, Danielle, in just a moment. We will also take you on a virtual tour of the Google offices here in Michigan and tell you all a little bit about what it's like to work for Google. And then we will hear from Dr. Tanya Matthews, who is a leader in STEM education. And she's going to talk to us about what is your STEM and what will you do with it. So that's our opening session. After that, starting at 11 o'clock, we have a career panel where we're going to hear from people who have jobs where they use science and technology and engineering and math to do cool things in Michigan. And then finally at 12 o'clock, we have some lessons set up so that you all can get started learning how to code or learning how to do digital skills. And don't worry, we're going to take you through everything you need to know during the lesson. So if you haven't ever done it before, that's okay. We're here to try something new. We also wanted to let you know that the live stream link is available. So hopefully if you need it, you'll be able to get to it there. But it's been in all of our invitations, so just click on that link to watch online. Okay, with that, we'd like to turn it over to Danielle Russell. She is the Managing Director for America's Platforms, and she's also the most senior Googler in our Detroit office. So she serves as our office lead. Danielle, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, Tara and Jasmine, and welcome everyone to the first virtual STEM Day, all virtual STEM Day. I just want to extend a warm welcome. You have an amazing agenda today. I hope you'll take the time to just listen and learn. I know myself sometimes I get distracted with just sitting here online with a computer screen in front of you. A little bit about my background. I've been at Google 13 years. I have been primarily in our sales organization. Today, I lead a team across technology-based sales. So think of it as all of the technology that sits behind the advertising you might get from Google. So whether it's a search ad or a display ad, there's lots of technology that's running behind the scenes in order for a company to whether it's Quicken Loans, I think of Detroit companies, Little Caesars, the Detroit Tigers. So anyone who's trying to serve you and reach you, there's all this technology that sits behind the background. I grew up here in Michigan. I went to school and spent most of my childhood in Sterling Heights. I went to college at William & Mary in Virginia. I studied psychology. I didn't study anything in STEM. And here I am. I started in advertising. I didn't even start in a technology-based company. I worked in automotive for much of that time. And I just share that with you so that you can think about your journey. You're going to have a career panel, as Tara shared. Know that you don't have to have your dream job right out of school. You can work your way. Just be curious. Ask questions. Be open to learning, be open to failing. Failing is an important part of what we think about here at Google. We want to fail fast, we want to be okay and comfortable with it, and we want to build on it. So I just hope that you enjoy your time today. We'd love to have you at one of our Michigan offices. You know, we have 5 offices in Michigan with over 1,000 Googlers, and we hope when all this is behind us, that we can see your amazing faces and have you in person someday. So with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Tara and Jasmine. And I just wish you a great time of learning, exploring, and getting excited about what's in front of you. So best of luck, group, and off to you all, Jasmine and Tara.
Thank you so much, Danielle. Okay, so now we're going to talk a little bit more about what it's like to work for Google. So like Danielle said, Google has 5 different offices in Michigan. A lot of people don't know that. But our flagship offices, are the offices that have the biggest presence, are in Ann Arbor and Detroit. That's where we work. And so we're going to tell you a little bit about Google and what it's like to work here. So Google, what does Google do? What does Google mean to you? So if you can type in the chat, do we have some students that are joining that can type in the chat here? Let's see. It looks like most of them are on the live stream, so we'll keep rocking right along. One of the things that Google is known for is search. So what we mean by that is Google got its start by building a search engine that was a way to help people go online on the internet and find the information that they needed. So before Google, that was really hard to do. And they came up with a new way to help people find what they needed quickly. And so that's why they became successful, because this was really useful and helpful for people. And from there, they've expanded to do a lot more stuff. So when we talk about search, we talk about how helping organize the world's information and making it universally accessible and useful. That's Google's mission. And so we started with search because that was the most direct way to do that. But from there, we've expanded to use all of these different products to make sure that we're helping people do that. So these are all sorts of different products from Google. And what they have in common is that they help people organize information or find information or share information, and that way that they can stay connected with each other no matter where they are. And so some of the products that you might see on here, the red play button in the bottom corner, you probably recognize that. That's YouTube. So YouTube is a place you can go on the internet to watch videos and create videos and share videos. And that's one of Google's most popular products. We also have things like Gmail, which is an email product. We have Google Calendar to help you organize your time. We have Google Photos. We have Google Maps to help you figure out where you're going. And again, all of these things are designed to help people use technology to find information, stay organized, and stay connected. But what about this? This is one of the new cars from Waymo, and this is a self-driving car. That's right, the car drives itself. A human doesn't have to drive it. And so why would Google, who said we're gonna help organize the world's information and make it universally accessible and useful, spend time building a self-driving car? How does that fit in? Well, Waymo is one of our sister companies, and that means that they're a separate company from Google, but they still fall under our parent company umbrella, which means they have the same leadership, but they operate a little bit differently. And one of the reasons why they are investing and coming up with this awesome technology so that cars can drive themselves is to make it universally accessible and useful. So if you think about somebody who can't drive right now because maybe they are visually impaired or blind, and so it's hard for them to get themselves around, if they had a car that could drive for them, then that would help make it more accessible and useful for them to be able to get where they're going. And so all of these things are still going back to that idea of helping people get the information and the connections that they need, no matter what their need is or where they are. Jasmine, I'd like to turn it over to you to take us through the next couple topics.
Awesome. I'm super excited to be here today. And I think while we learn about cars and all of these products that we might see in our daily lives, technology can show up in a lot of different ways. So have you ever sent a text message to a friend or an email? Have you ever played a video game? I know I play lots of video games, lots of fun video games. Or bought something online. If so, you've participated in technology that helps us all stay connected in our daily lives. It takes people to make that technology and users, like all of you, to make it impactful and help us continue to make them better. Those are examples of things that we do on a day-to-day basis that really drive our innovation. Now, like I mentioned, we are all users and creators of that technology. So us as Google employees, we are just like you. We're out there trying to communicate with our friends, playing video games. And to do that, we need to have your experiences and our experiences of finding the things that we would like to see in our daily lives and then making it. And that creates a nice little circle of innovation and experience and getting all of your input to make those products better and better. We help create a lot of jobs globally in the technology sector, and we're a great example of the human power behind all of the computer power that you see out there. There are nearly 100,000 Google employees working all around the world with users and creators of technology every day. Awesome.
Google is a place that I just fell in love with the culture. I fell in love with the energy. There was just a vibe that I wanted to be a part of.
It's just some place where I can never imagine myself getting bored, because we're thinking about billions of users. And so that's a lot of impact that you can have, and it's just really gratifying.
Google is so much at the forefront of technology, and the way that our culture is built, we are always looking for the 10x. We are always looking for the leapfrog innovation.
So you have to be willing to let all your preconceived notions be broken at any moment.
You're going to have to make your own rules sometimes, and this is actually part of the fun.
I get to try new technologies. I get to implement them in different ways that maybe no other company has done them before. And so you can really go beyond your skill set that you think you have at the moment and push the boundaries.
The part that makes it really fun is there are so many teams across Google that have amazing expertise. And I get to work with these people, not only build something with them, but I learn so much.
Pick any topic and I can promise you there's someone here who is both better at it than you or more knowledgeable, and also, and more importantly, willing to help you learn.
Everybody here is so nice. They're so encouraging. So that's very reassuring to be in a company where people value you.
I am fortunate enough to work with people from a lot of different experience, a lot of different backgrounds, and we use that in our advantage.
It's really the best idea wins. There's a lot of debate, but it's really to bring those different viewpoints together, and that's what we want our products to represent.
We believe the benefits of technology should apply to all, and that's a mission that really is very, very inspiring.
So when I show up at work, I'm able to do all the things that I love, solving hard problems and working for the people that I manage. That makes it worthwhile for me to show up every day.
So that was a quick video to show you a little bit about what it's like to work for Google, and it featured a lot of scenes from all different Google offices. Our headquarters out in California, but all of our offices have a lot in common, and that is we hire a lot of different people from a lot of different backgrounds to be able to work on cool projects and solve big problems. And when we bring them together, when we're in the office, which is not something we're doing right now because of the pandemic, we're all working from home. But when we are in the office, one of the things that Google wants to make sure of is that we have a lot of places where we can interact with each other and collaborate and talk to each other, because sharing ideas is one of the ways that we can be creative and help solve problems. And so all of our offices are set up with a couple of things in common. One is to be fun and creative and inspirational. Another is to bring people together. And so in a lot of office buildings, you see people are just sitting at their desk all by themselves. And Google doesn't like to work that way. They like to have lots of interactions and bring people together. And so one of the things we're thinking about now is how can we still do that and keep people safe when we go back into the office once things are looking safer after COVID-19. So we asked our friend Eric, who is the real estate and workspace director for the Google Michigan offices, if he would do a video tour to show you how our Google Ann Arbor office is designed. So let's see the video that Eric made for us today.
One thing that's very important in Google is making sure everyone feels included. We're up in the barista area right now, and you'll see some really cool architecture. We'll kind of walk through this wall right here. So we have a secret door tied into a hidden ERG library. ERG stands for Employee Resource Group, and this room is used by groups that want to come in and have conversations, or maybe even some difficult conversations about things that are happening in the world and society that impacts, certain groups different than others. You can see a couple examples of some of these ERGs here that were using this space prior to the pandemic. You're still at Traverwood in Ann Arbor. This is our atrium. It's a 3-story building, and as you can see, we have a nice large atrium with a central staircase, all themed in Michigan if you seek a Pleasant Peninsula look about you. But this allows, again, for collaboration and those casual collisions. Rather than riding elevators or coming up external fire stairs, you have individuals that come up the central staircase, pass each other on the way from the barista down to the cafe when changing floors and that type of thing. So really works well for collaborations and those casual collisions. All right, on the topic of food, this is our beautiful Traverwood Cafe. Unfortunately, pandemic era cafe right now as well, but part of the program, again, for those casual collisions, you can see the way that the tables are set up, long tables for people to sit together, for people of different groups, sales, engineering, and the like, to be able to sit together and have conversations. An interesting fact is that Gmail was actually born out of a conversation between a sales individual and an engineer that just happened to sit together at lunch years and years ago out in Mountain View, California. But in a normal circumstance, we have chefs that are back there preparing the food. You can see all of the various stations, and then a big backup house back there. All right, well, welcome to the north side of Traverwood. As you can see, we set up the workstations to have collaboration. This is in a pre-pandemic era, but the workstations are set up for individuals to be able to collaborate. There's areas for lounges and team breakaways that are within the workspaces. Similar to our food program, our health and fitness program is very important to Googlers that are here. You can see the upstairs of our gym with various equipment that is able to be used 24/7. Googlers have the opportunity to come in and use this equipment during or after work times. It's set up with a trainer that is able to put together programs and help individuals out for anything that they need for their fitness goals. As you can see, it kind of overlooks our patio as well. And downstairs, there's a studio where they can do different classes, yoga sessions, and those types of things within the office. We have a large outdoor patio space here at Traverwood as well, with a really cool Google mural that was done by a local artist that depicts various activities that go on here within the office. But this is a space that we're really proud of that we were able to build into the office. It sits along kind of a wetland over there, as you'll see, built in a bit of an amphitheater here for outdoor presentations. And it's a spot where people are able to come out, bring their lunch or their breakfast, take outdoor meetings. It's going to be especially valuable to us as we start to come back from the pandemic and we're able to meet outdoors.
So you saw Eric mentioned a lot all of the spaces we have in the Ann Arbor office for collaboration, similar to the video we saw before in our California office and all of the offices for Google. We do have another office that is really cool in Michigan. That's the office I sit in, which is our Detroit office. So this office is new. It's only a couple years old. And because of the pandemic, Little Caesars Arena is closed right now. So we couldn't get in to do a video tour, but I have these pictures that I'm excited to show you. So yes, our office is located in Little Caesars Arena. So in the first picture, what you can see is our internal balcony. So what I can do when I go into the office, when it's open, of course, is go out to this balcony and see what's going on inside the arena. So there is what they call the via, or the concourse around Little Caesars Arena there. And I can sit out there with my laptop and see what's going on. And sometimes there's really cool events in the arena. So you might know that's where the Detroit Red Wings play hockey, when the Detroit Pistons play basketball. Sometimes there's concerts there. So when we're working in the office, there'll be like recording artists doing their sound check right next door. So Ariana Grande or Drake will be practicing and rehearsing while we're in the office and we get to hear them. It's so fun. Sometimes there's other events that come through like Disney on Ice or all sorts of cool stuff. So there's usually something happening there, but of course not right now because of the pandemic. The other cool thing about our office, besides being in Little Caesars Arena, is we have the same amenities that we talked about in the video. So that's my friend Jason in the top picture in our cafe, and he's pretending to get frozen yogurt right out of the ice cream machine. But don't worry, he's very sanitary and he uses a cup for real. That was just a photo shot. But yeah, we get free ice cream every day that we're in the office, as well as they make breakfast for us and they make lunch for us, and it's really awesome and I really miss it. In the picture on the bottom, that's our outdoor balcony. So we have a rooftop area where we can go outside when the weather's nice, and we get to look at downtown. So what you can see here is the Tigers baseball stadium. So that's where the Detroit Tigers play, and so we can see them in the summertime. And then in the winter or fall, I guess, we can go to the patio and we can watch the Thanksgiving parade come right down Woodward Avenue. So really cool location. And then finally, the picture you see on the right is us working together right outside of our cafe. Obviously, this was before the pandemic, and we have our wall of fame for guest chefs. So sometimes we have chefs come and they talk to us about what food they make in their restaurants, and they cook for us. And so it's just a really nice, fun, creative space. I see we have some students joining. Hello, everyone. Thank you for your patience when we were trying to get everything sorted out this morning. We talked about this is our first time doing this virtually, so we appreciate your patience, and we're really glad you're here. So thank you for joining, and just a reminder to stay on mute while we're talking, but please type in the chat so that we can get answers if we ask you questions and stuff. Cool? Can I get a thumbs up from the students? Thumbs up from the students? Cool backgrounds, everybody. Okay. So we talked about what it's like to work for Google and what it's like in our offices. And now we're going to hear from Dr. Tanya Matthews. She is our keynote speaker. Dr. Matthews is so cool. So she's done a lot of really cool stuff. Right now, she's serving as the CEO, so that means the big boss, the leader of the International African American Museum, and this is her new job. But when I met Dr. Tanya Matthews, she was working for Wayne State University at the STEM Learning Innovation Center. She also used to work at the Michigan Science Center, which is in downtown Detroit, and we'll get to hear from somebody who works at the Michigan Science Center now later today in our career panel. But one of the things that I think is so cool is that Dr. Tanya Matthews founded the STEManista Project. And that is a project or a group organization that works to help get women and young girls. He was working for Wayne State University at the STEM Learning Innovation and math. Also used to work at the Michigan. Okay, so we are going to turn it over to Dr. Matthews for our keynote address. Take it away, Jasmine.
Hello, and welcome to Google's Michigan STEM Day. My name is Dr. Tanya Matthews, and I am excited to be joining you at the kickoff for this amazing event. A little bit about myself. I am trained as a biomedical and electrical engineer, but even so, I was a late bloomer. Sure, I had the math classes. Sure, I had the science classes, but I didn't actually think of STEM as part of my life or my life's work or even my college major until pretty late. So if you haven't quite decided exactly where in STEM you fit, or if you fit in STEM, don't worry, there is still plenty of time, and I am very glad to see you here today. So let's go ahead and kick off with the most common question anyone ever gets about STEM. That, of course, is, what is STEM? You've either asked someone or someone has asked you, and we're all talking about it. But interestingly, there are lots of different answers to this question. Now, we do have the basics down. Of course, we know our letters, the S, the T, the E, and the M, right? Science, technology, engineering, and math. So when we think about how we answer the question, there are usually two classical ways that we get our answer. The first is the ever-present word cloud, or something similar to it, right? So we see our S, T, E, and M, and then surrounding it are all the different majors and disciplines that go along with STEM, right? So you have plenty of choices, plenty of variety, but maybe you have too many choices, too much variety. Somehow this can seem a bit unsatisfying sometimes, or maybe even a bit daunting. Perhaps you were thinking, I just want to do something on the biology side, and you discover there's a lot going on in that space. And you're also wondering, well, which of the engineerings can I choose from? So the good news is there are lots and lots of choices. So no matter how specific or how general you want to get in your space, there is definitely going to be a STEM major to help you do it. But the hard part about this is, while this may be the actual what to what is STEM, it's certainly not the so what, and it's definitely not the why. So this is where this technique for answering this question, what is STEM, just saying all the majors that we could have, kind of falls short, because it doesn't give us, so what do we do with this? Or why would we choose that option? And so there's the second most common way we answer this question. We talk about careers. We talk about the different jobs. We talk about how the coolest jobs coming out next are going to be STEM jobs. The best paying jobs coming out next are going to be STEM jobs. And all of this is very true. And so we're curious and we're looking in that space. But then we get bombarded with this amazing list of options and amazing people who are doing these jobs. Now, the good news is that at least these folks in these jobs are starting to look a little something like you, or at least someone you'd want to hang out with. But this can be a little intimidating because everyone in these roles seems like they always knew that's what they wanted to do, or they seem so very good at their job that they must have been a natural. And we start asking questions. Is the job STEMmy enough? Am I STEMmy enough? Wait, how does this relate to all of the words and the disciplines that we saw on the other slide? Well, what major do I need to do that job? In particular, what major did the butterfly guy have anyway? So it can all start to get together in a bit of a jumble. So let's pause for a second, step backwards just a little bit, and make sure we have the absolute basics. We usually say, what is STEM? And we get detail-oriented in our answer. But how about a working definition of STEM? Something that we can work with. First and foremost, STEM is not an abbreviation. It is the real-world intermingling of the four disciplines. Think about it. You are going to see your doctor. Great. Of course, you want your doctor to have medicine and biology in their background. But if the doctor is going to prescribe you a prescription, don't you want your doctor to know enough math to get your dose right? Don't you want your doctor to know enough technology to be able to use the tools to properly diagnose you? So see, of course, in the real world, we're used to all of the components of STEM coming together. And what we started to do is talk that way in education as well. Secondly, STEM is a tool. STEM is not the career. STEM comes with tools to create the career. STEM comes with tools that help you solve problems, that help you deliver on your life goals and what it is that you want to do. And the nice thing about STEM, and that's really where those big lists of all of those different disciplines come in, STEM has a lot of tools made for solving a lot of different problems. The third thing to know about STEM is that STEM is a way of thinking. So if you think about the first point, about the intermingling of disciplines, and you think about the second point, about how STEM is a tool, you start to actually understand how STEM is a way of thinking, right? People who are trained in STEM connect the dots, just like we connect our disciplines. We're always crossing boundaries and crossing over lines, trying to solve different problems and come up with unique solutions, which is, of course, then where the tools come in. We have maybe one tool and we use it in several solutions, or we have one problem and we use several tools. And it really goes into how we think about the way we approach our work, how we approach our tools, and how we approach the problems we're trying to solve. As I mentioned, I started out as a biomedical engineer working in a research lab doing biomedical engineering. But I have grown. From there, I began to use my engineering tools and my engineering way of thinking to design programs for museums and for school students. And now I'm at an organization that's really not a STEM institution at all, but I'm using the way I was taught to think as an engineer to set up strategies and processes and to keep the business very organized. So when you think about STEM as a way of thinking, I think all of those different lists and options become pretty interesting to think about. Lastly, STEM is flexible and dynamic. So the good news is that there's going to be something in that space that is useful for all kinds of problems and solutions, all kinds of students and learners and careers. It's why the list of words is so big. It's why there are so many careers coming down the pipeline with STEM attached, because it is flexible and dynamic. So the tough news is it can be a lot to take in, but the good news is you can take in exactly what you want to take in, when you need to take in to achieve your particular goals. But now here's one of my favorite parts about STEM. STEM has a lot of hidden treasures, is what I like to call them. So for example, sometimes I'll even double up on my E and think of the E in STEM also being for entrepreneurship, setting up your own business. Well, you've got to know about money and accounting and business processes and supply chains. Maybe you're developing a product. So for me, entrepreneurship is also a part of STEM, and sometimes that's the way I use the E. I've also seen people do STEM with 2 M's. That second M would be for medicine. Now, of course, the science of medicine is included in the S, but there are some things about the medical professions that folks often want to call out, and so they'll double up and add an M. Now, I know at this point, some of you know what letter I'm going to bring up next, and you've been looking for it and waiting for it. It's the A for the arts. I will tell you a secret. The A has always been in there. Inside the STEM field, we've always been artistic. We've always been creative. We just use different words to talk about that part of STEM. Most often we use the word design, right? There are many designers who are creators inside of the world of STEM. I have some geekier friends who will actually tell me that a perfect line of code is beautiful. But even outside of the super geek, when we're talking about STEM fields that include aesthetic elements like architecture, or that mix form and function like biomimicry. The A is embedded inside each of these disciplines. And so regardless of what acronym you're using or what letters you're sticking in there, remember, STEM does have its hidden treasures because of that first point, that it's really the intermingling of the way all of these things work. So let's think about a different way then to ask and answer the question. I mentioned that I think about this as the other question. Perhaps I should phrase it as a better question or a better way of asking. These days, I don't really work with my students and say, what is STEM? I say, what is your STEM and what are you going to do with it? This is a very different way of approaching STEM. And given how flexible and dynamic it is, given how big those lists of possibilities are, this, I think, is a really good way to approach this. And frankly, you're already on step one in exploring something like STEM Day. Now, when you think about what is your STEM, there are usually three different ways you can think about it. One, inside the STEM space, there's an archetype, a type called a creator. Now, many of the folks you're going to meet today are creator types, right? Coders, computer engineers who are building things, creating new software, creating new apps and those kinds of tools. They are definitely in the creator space. But not every Googler is a creator type, and not all creator types are coders or computer or software engineers. For example, biomedical engineers like myself, we also build and create different instruments and tools and machines for the body. Even theoretical physicists who create theories and ways of looking at the world in their mind are also considered creators. And then we have our classic creator types, such as graphic designers. Remember, it's not the STEM, it's what you do with the STEM that is really about to make the difference for you. Another type of STEM person are power users, right? So when you think about that second question and what are you going to do with it, that's where you get into the power users. Power users are those who really know how to use the tools of STEM to make their business better. And that business may or may not be about STEM at all. Say you are a shoe designer, right? And you're looking to design something more than just good-looking shoes. So you've stepped beyond the graphic design work, and now you want individually designed shoes, not just for someone's preference, but for the exact shape of their foot. So maybe you're using sensors, maybe you're using movement algorithms, maybe you're using 3D printing for your prototypes or the actual shoe itself. That's an idea of how a power user may be using lots of tools. Say you are an environmental lobbyist who is connecting communities across the world to implement a multi-nodal carbon recycling strategy. Yes, you're actually working through and around the science, but you are the connector. And the way you're using your STEM tools is not to actually build the systems you're trying to connect. You're using the tools to connect the people who will actually get it done. You could even be a special education teacher who has figured out how to use all of these different STEM tools to create an equitable classroom space for all of their learners. It's not about the tool itself. It's about the mastery of STEM tools and how many are in your toolbox to really bring out the genius in your ideas and your ability. The third and final type of personality that I'll get into with you today is the navigator type. Now, the navigator types are the ones that really think about being problem solvers, but maybe like to solve different kinds of problems for different kinds of companies or people at different times. So these folks are a combination of your creator and power user because they've got a very large STEM toolbox. But what they often do is figure out how to help other people navigate the tools in their toolbox to solve problems. So, for example, you could be a coder. Coding is what you know how to do. But one week you're creating an app to help a hospital, and another week you're creating an app to help an auto company. You could be a mechanical engineer, revolutionizing prosthetics for injured veterans, and at the same time using that same technology and same way of thinking for creating better, more powerful robotic arms, for helping to distance us from more dangerous jobs. Perhaps you're a marine biologist following species across oceans, but you're actually translating everything you've learned into helping to build survival strategies for the Mars colony. So the navigators are really experts at bouncing across problems, using their one discipline or their single set of tools to help bounce across many different problems. I'll say it one more time. It's not about the STEM. It's always about what you do with it. And I think this is a good way of thinking about the other questions in STEM. So as I say goodbye and leave you to go off for the rest of your day, keep these two things in mind. What is your STEM and what are you going to do it? You may be a creator, you may be a power user, you may be a navigator, and it's quite likely you're a little bit of more than one. The possibilities here are endless, but most importantly, they are yours. So enjoy the rest of your day for this Google Michigan STEM Day. And don't forget, explore, explore, explore.
Tara, I think we're almost done, but I did see we had a few questions. Jordan, did you have a question that you wanted to ask? You can always put it in the chat because I think we're otherwise close to being done. You want to close this up, Tara?
Sure. That was so cool to hear from Dr. Tanya Matthews. I think that she had a lot of really helpful information and ways to think about STEM. So what I learned from her talk was that it's not just science and technology and engineering and math that are separate subjects, but a lot of times people use them all together at the same time. And they use them as tools to do cool stuff and solve big problems. And that there's lots of ways that you can use them, right? You can use them to make stuff or create stuff. You can use them as somebody who uses technology or uses science. So a power user is what she called it. And then you can use it to navigate. So as a way to help other people get things done. So that's what I do. I'm a navigator. I help other people get things done by using technology and science as a way of thinking. So that was cool to hear from Dr. Matthews. We are wrapping up our opening session. So in a few minutes, we're going to start our career panel. That starts at 11 o'clock. So we have a few minutes before then. If you want to keep typing questions in the chat, then we have some Googlers on the call and we'll answer them. And we will come back at 11 o'clock to start our career panel where we're going to hear from people that have really cool jobs in Michigan. Okay, see you in a few.
Tara, it looks like we have a question. How much time does it take to be a Googler, I think was the question. And I think what we're asking here is like, how much experience do you need? So while most of the people that work at Google are, have gone to college and have a little bit of career experience, everybody is part of the big Googler infrastructure and the big system.
And we will come back at 11 o'clock to start our career panel where we're going to hear from people that have really cool jobs.
You can keep your mic switched a little bit. Sorry, so the question was how long does it take to be Googler? Well, most of those are Just a reminder to keep your mics off if you're not currently speaking. While most folks have college educations or have other industry experience that help them be, know enough about something to be a Googler, everybody participates in that. So when you tell us what products you need in your school, whether it's how to search for things better, or you want a new video game online, that's being part of what makes a good Googler. So, asking the questions and helping us to improve our products, everyone participates in that big system. Okay, I'm seeing a couple of other, how do they make it so that Google can answer any question? Oh, that's a great question. And then I see a few other hands, so I'll get to those as well. Angel, it's a great question. How do they make it so that Google can answer any question? Google is an enormous search engine. It leverages a lot of information all across the internet. So many, many millions of people who have put information on the internet. Then we do a lot of cross-referencing and curating the data and the information so that we can know whether it's right or not. And once we know whether it's right, then we can share it with anybody else who asks that question. So every time you type a question into Google, we say, hey, Angel typed this question, so did Jimmy in Brazil, and Sophia in Colombia, and a lot of other people. And over time, that kind of big mind, everybody's brains working together, helps us get to the right answer. And then we do a little bit of curating of that data so that we know it's right. So even if everybody thinks the same thing, we can still get the right answer. Information.
I'll just add on to that. One of the other ways that Google can do it so fast is by using something called an algorithm. So an algorithm is a system that's made up in a computer. So they program a computer to think really fast. And the program looks at all of the information out there and finds words that are relevant. So if you ask a question, the computer algorithm looks at all the information on the internet and finds the words that are in your question and then comes back to you with an answer in just a couple seconds. So it takes a lot of computer power to be able to look at that much information that fast. And we have buildings, like whole buildings all across the country that are just what we call data centers. And they just have lots and lots, just like whole rows of computers that are working all the time. So you enter a question into Google. Our algorithm uses all of those computers and all of the buildings around the whole country to process the information really fast and then give you the information back. So that's how Google knows all of the answers to the questions you type in.
Awesome. I think we had a few other students that had questions in the meeting. Darian, if I'm pronouncing your name right, would you like to ask your question? You can ask it on your microphone or type it in the chat.
All the time.
Why has YouTube been shutting down? The site has been broken a lot.
That's a good question. I saw your question in the chat. I think you mean the live stream. Is that right for this?
No, I'm saying like a lot. Like it happens a lot. Like the site on YouTube, it'll like be broken a lot and it won't load up.
Gotcha. So it's a good question. All of our technologies, right, we are learning as we use them as well. In a lot of cases, there are certain parameters that you need in order to be able to use certain things like YouTube, like a really powerful computer, and the ability to download and see that media. In some cases, it's feedback for our engineers to make the site better, right? So if we're not meeting our goal of making something universally accessible and useful, so to everyone, no matter what kind of computer they have, or no matter what kind of internet connection they have, then that's work that we're continuing to make progress on. But of course, we're not perfect. That's why we need smart people like all of you to come and help us solve these problems by giving us that feedback and by helping us solve it if you ever decide to join Google.
I remember one time it was shut down for hours.
In some cases, Yep. So, have you ever, opened a window overnight and forgot it, or left your homework at school or something like that? Every once in a while, we make mistakes, and sometimes that our mistakes, because we're a very big company, are visible to everyone. And we have to figure it out.
That's why we
And I have a question. Who is the CEO of YouTube? Not YouTube, Google.
The CEO of Google is Sundar Pichai.
He's the founder of it?
He's not the founder of it. We have two founders. Very
Open the window overnight and forgot it, or left your homework at school.
Here.
Oh, okay.
And
Thanks for all the questions, Darian. If others have questions, we can stay in the chat, but we do need to move on to the next item in our agenda. Tara, I'll turn it back over to you, and the rest of us can mute our mics.
Thanks, Jasmine. Let's see here. We are ready for the career panel. Really, really good questions. Also, Susan Wojcicki is the CEO of YouTube, and she has 5 kids. So she's very busy running YouTube and being a mom to 5 kids. I think that's amazing. Okay, so let's talk about the career panel now. One thing I want to check is to make sure that we have our panelists visible. So let's see here. I'm gonna change the layout really quick and make sure we can see our panelists. Okay, I think this should do it. Okay, so thank you for joining our opening session this morning. Thank you for being engaged and asking all these great questions. Now we're going to talk about the career panel, which when we talk about a career panel, we mean we got a bunch of people together that have interesting jobs, and we're going to ask them questions about their jobs. So let's introduce our guest speakers. Jasmine, if you could take us to the next slide. Here are our speakers for today. So for those of you who joined a little bit later and didn't hear our introduction, my name is Tara and I work for Google in Detroit. And I will be facilitating the panel today, meaning I'm going to ask our speakers these questions. So if you have questions for our speakers, you can type them in the chat. But remember to please stay on mute so that when we're talking to our speakers, we can hear them well. Okay, so here is our lineup for our guest speakers today. We have Sergio Santamaria from the Detroit Pistons. We have Anna Sterner from the Michigan Science Center. We have Chris Kirby joining us from StockX. We have Gabe Doss joining us from Google. And we have Paul Luskin joining us from Waymo. So welcome, speakers. I would like to have you all introduce yourselves. So we heard from Dr. Tanya Matthews this morning. She was our keynote speaker. And she said, when she talks about STEM, she gets the question, what is STEM? And she explained to us about science, technology, engineering, and math, and how they all work together. And she said the question she likes to ask is, what is your STEM, and how do you use it? So when you're introducing yourself to our students today, please tell us how you use science, technology, engineering, and math in your job. Sergio, let's start with you.
Yeah, thanks, Tara. As it says right there on the screen, I'm a data analyst here for the Detroit Pistons. If anyone out there has seen the movie Moneyball, that's the easiest way to describe what I do for the team. It's basically using all 4 of science, technology, engineering, and math to make the Pistons a better team, to make decisions about what players we should trade for, what technologies and tactics we should use in our team building strategies. So it's everything from let's rest players, that's the science side of things. What technology should we use to collect data about our team? That's the technology side. Engineering is the programming that I do to actually come up with the stats that we look at. And then mathematics is every single day. Math was my subject growing up, and I joined the Pistons this last year, and I'm super excited to talk to you guys today.
That is so cool. Thanks for being here today, Sergio. Anna, welcome. Please tell us, what do you do for your job and how do you use STEM?
Hi, everyone. I am Anna Sterner. I am the Director of Programs at the Michigan Science Center. We are a nonprofit museum and science center that's located right here in the city of Detroit. I think I have a pretty cool job because I work at a science center, which is a really cool place, but my job here is to design learning experiences and learning programs for people of all ages. So I build and test new technology. I research new experiments and demonstrations that we can do. We connect with audiences here in the building, but we also have a distance learning program where we connect virtually with people all around the world, actually. And why I STEM and how I STEM has changed a lot throughout my life. I think the best part about my job is that it changes all the time. That I studied biology in college, but that really opened my eyes to all the other facets of STEM. And I like to say that, just as Dr. Matthews said, that STEM is always changing. And so I like to say that that E in STEM can also mean education, which is a huge part of what I do here.
I love that. Thank you so much for joining us today. Hi, Chris.
Hi. Thanks for having me.
To our panel. Please tell us, how do you use STEM in your job?
Absolutely. So my role at StockX is Vice President of Engineering. So that means I lead a team of software engineers primarily. And how I use STEM in my job, it varies over the years as an engineer. I think you use a little bit of everything, science and, science, technology. Really, the things we're focused on in tech, and we call it tech because we use all manner of technology, whether it's programming languages or whether it's technology we use to authenticate the sneakers that go through our authentication center. We get to play with a lot of fun toys is kind of how I like to think about it, honestly. And so as an engineer, all aspects of those are involved when you're writing code. And as a leader—
Damn it, your thing is going real slow.
What's that? Sorry. And as a leader, I get to work with a lot of smart people, and we get to hypothesize, we get to strategize, we get to experiment and do proof of concepts around new technology. And so, and that's really where innovation comes in. And so what I find most exciting about STEM and technology in particular is the innovations aspect. And we get to innovate a lot at StockX. But I look forward to talking to you guys today. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Chris. You mentioned authenticating sneakers. So I know about Detroit Pistons and I know about the Michigan Science Center because I got to go there and look at the planetarium. But I don't know very much about StockX. So can you tell our students a little bit more about what you mean when you say you authenticate sneakers?
Yeah, sure. I'm happy to. So StockX is an online marketplace, for really kind of rare and exciting goods. We got started with sneakers and around sneaker culture. And so, if you're really excited about a pair of Jordan Air Force Ones or something like that, it's essentially a place where you can buy a really unique or rare good like a sneaker. And we actually authenticate it in our warehouses around the globe. So that means you're certain to get an authentic pair of sneakers because there's a lot of issues with fakes and with counterfeits. And at StockX, we make sure that that you're getting the genuine item. And so we actually leverage technology to do that. We leverage people to do that. We leverage machine learning to do that, which I'm sure, Sergio, you're familiar with. We use a lot of cool AI technology. So it's actually a pretty innovative thing and a part of our business. In our warehouses.
That is so cool. Thank you for being here.
Sure.
Gabe from Google, hello.
Hi, Tara. Thanks for having me, and thank you all for being here. My name is Gabe Doss, and I've worked here at Google in Michigan for the past 9 years. Currently, I am a program manager, and I work in Google Ads, our advertising. So whenever you open YouTube and you see an ad before you see the video you went to watch, or if you go on google.com and you do a search, you may see advertisements at the top of that screen. And so Google provides all types of free products like Gmail or YouTube or Google Search that anyone can use at any time. But our advertising is actually how we make any money in order for us to do all of these other cool things, whether it's producing phones or showing videos to the world. And so my role as a part of our global business organization is as a program manager to try to make our operations more efficient and to make our products easier to use, specifically our ad products. So any of those ads you see on YouTube or on Google search, my team has something to do with that. I'm a native Detroiter, and so I grew up here, and many of my experiences before Google were in creative spheres, like theater and writing and music. And so I brought that passion with me to college, and today I use STEM to help solve problems. Particularly, I'm working on a project with the city of Detroit right now, and we're trying to figure out how to make housing more accessible. And so that involves doing research, that involves understanding engineering principles to design things. But in that design process, often what it comes down to is literally being able to sketch out your ideas on paper. And so I love STEM because a big part of STEM is being able to communicate your ideas and to have ideas to how to improve the world around you.
That is so cool. I can't wait to hear more. And Paul, please tell us how you use STEM for your job at Waymo.
Absolutely. Thanks, Tara. So yeah, I'm Paul Luskin. I'm a technical program manager working at Waymo, which a lot of people know as Google's self-driving car company. When I say self-driving, I mean you sit in the back seat, nobody in the driver's seat, cars driving by themselves, which is really pretty cool. And I work in vehicle engineering that focuses on how do you modify a vehicle platform to integrate all of this technology, mounting sensors, computers, and kind of unique features for cars that are designed not to have a driver in them. And while I have an engineering background as a program manager, a lot of what I do is project leadership and communicating with other people what they need to do. What's the scope of the project? So what modifications do we want to the vehicle? Is that feasible? Like, what do we need to do to make it happen? How expensive is it? If it's not feasible, what do we do instead? Or you're trying to solve problems. If something's not working in testing or not working in the field, who do I have to get involved to fix the problem? I have to communicate to people what those problems are, kind of drive them to conclusions. And so it's a people job, but it involves STEM because you have to understand the technical issues, what's going on, and what you do to solve it. And at this stage of my career, like math tends to be more around organizing data, like dealing with a lot of financial data, more so than the sort of technical math that I would have done earlier in my career. But still pretty fun.
That
Yeah.
is so cool. You all have really cool jobs. I'm so glad that you could come today. And I think it's really cool to learn that all of these jobs are available in Michigan. I didn't know that when I was growing up. So speaking of growing up, Sergio and Anna, I'd like to ask you both this question. Could you tell us about your career path? And did you follow the career path that you thought you would to end up in the jobs that you are today?
So I fortunately have, because I don't know about anybody out there, but I was and still am a massive, massive, massive sports person. So that guided really my interest in academics and in my early career. So I knew early on that anything that involved sports, I was going to be super, super excited to do. Like any project in school that I was able to apply sports to, I got way more excited about than anything else. So I was able to go to school for a major called sport management, in addition to another major called data science, which helped me round out the STEM background. And I combined those two to go into basketball analytics. The Pistons are the third NBA team that I've worked for. I started off with the Houston Rockets and then the Phoenix Suns, and now I'm here in Detroit. But the real moral of the story for me is that I've always loved sports, and I was able to apply it and pursue it in my career.
I think we picked a great group for this question because I think I had a pretty opposite experience. So when I went away to college, I had decided that I wanted to study science because it was something I always excelled in at school. So I've always loved science. I'm glad that I ended up in a science field, but it's definitely not the way I imagined it going. If you would have asked me when I was in junior high or high school, would have told you that I wanted to end up in medicine, that's why I wanted to study science, was because I wanted to be a doctor, a practitioner, something along those lines, because I really like helping others. But when I went away to school, I actually went to Wayne State University, which is right across the street from the Science Center. And I got a part-time job at the Science Center because it sounded like fun. Like many people, I had to have a job in college to support myself. And this just sounded like something I would be interested in, something fun to do when I wasn't in class. And so I started working here. And the longer I was here, the more skills I picked up along the way. So like I said, I studied biology in college, and to be a biology major, you don't just get to take biology classes. That's pretty much the case with any science major you might choose, is that they do make you take a variety of classes. So I took a lot of math, I took a lot of chemistry, took a lot of physics. And I think that really helped me here because as I moved up in my career, once I graduated college, I actually started to use those skills kind of in practice. And so I use all of those physics classes when I'm designing experiments here, when I'm designing something like a fire tornado, right? I'm really glad that I have this chemistry background so I understand exactly what's fueling that fire. I'm glad I have that physics background because it really helps me to kind of design the physical setup of our various experiments. But I was really, really blessed, I think, that when I started here at the Science Center, that I just had really passionate people around me who really supported me, who showed me that you don't just have to pick the path that you thought you would pick when you went away to school. I think that when you're really young, you may know what you want, and that's awesome, but it's okay to change your mind. I think that when I was early in my career here, I was really fearful of disappointing someone, that if I told people I went away to school to become a doctor or end up in medicine and I wanted to change my mind, that someone might look at me and be disappointed or say, oh, she couldn't cut it. But that's not the case. I think it's good that as you move on in your life, you pick up various skills. And I definitely am glad that I didn't choose to stick with something, even though I was excelling at it at the time. I was good at it in school. But I ended up doing something that I use all those same kind of skill sets, and I really do use STEM as a tool now, and a lot more practicality. And so my experience was a little different. I definitely didn't end up where I thought I would be, but I'm really glad I ended up here where I am.
I agree with you. It's really important to keep that in mind. And also, I have never seen a fire tornado. So the fact that you get to make those for your job is really awesome. Okay, for our next question, I would like to ask Chris and Gabe. So for our next question, what skills do you think help you be most successful in your role, and how did you learn them? Was it in class, or was it in internships or other real world experience? Tell us a little bit about how you learned the skills you use in your job now.
I guess for me, it was, the skills I use every day, and I tell this to my own kids too. It's really thinking critically, and problem solving are just two of the most critical skills. And those don't come easy. I learned those, through various jobs and mentors, and really actually my time at college. And I went to Michigan State. I'm from Detroit, and I grew up here as well. It really teaches you how to learn. And I think that is such a critical skill, because in a career in STEM, you're always learning constantly. Things are changing rapidly in technology. We're always learning new technologies. So being able to think through a problem to understand, how to apply it, I think is really, really important. Another skill I'd say I'd put on sort of equal par with that is just clear, transparent communication. That takes a lot of work. Being able to communicate clearly, to build trust with people, to build relationships with people is so critical in what I do, because, as a leader of people, I need to trust them to do their jobs. They need to trust me. And that comes through communication, being honest, being clear, being able to make decisions, being accountable for those decisions. And so, there's a lot that goes into it. And part of me getting better at that is even like I'm doing today, talking to all of you. It's just constantly working at it, communicating, talking about what you're doing. And so that's how I'd say that. I've had a lot of great mentors in my life. I've worked, as a software developer since I first touched the computer, and I've had encouraging teachers that have helped me and encouraged me and helped me get my first job in high school, and helped me just, be a little more outgoing. As I'm naturally an introvert, so I've had a lot of encouragement to get out there and, learn how to communicate. And on the problem solving front, it's hard work, practice, and passion, has helped me develop those skills.
That sounds a lot like what Dr. Matthews said. Even though you're trained as an engineer, a lot of the skills you use are about communication and trust building, and that way you can use STEM as a tool to do lots of other cool stuff.
Absolutely.
Gabe, what skills do you use and how did you learn them?
Yes, I was never trained in engineering or a formal field in math, science, or technology. In college, I studied urban planning, and I really had a passion for writing. And so in my career before Google, I worked as a literary agent, I worked as a musician, I worked as a teacher. And some of the big skills that I brought to Google from having done that work already was communication, something that Chris spoke to, right? Being able to communicate clearly, and also understand what others are saying, to listen. Problem solving was a huge part of my career before Google, and it's something that I learned on the job as well, right? Like, hey, this is the problem that we're facing. How are we able to use all of the resources around us to try to solve that problem? Another skill set I would say is empathy. Google is a gigantic company and we have lots of products, but really in order to become better and to remain sort of as great as Google has been for as long as it has to listen to its users and have some empathy there and understand, okay, YouTube may not be loading, as fast as we want it to be. How can we create an experience that works for all users, right? That works on all devices. And how can we cater to those folks? I would say gaining those skills has always been rooted in understanding what I love and what my passions were, and really investing my time in that. So I never said, hey, I have to be a mathematician or I have to be a scientist or an engineer, but I'm at a technology company using skills that I built, pursuing things that I love. After having that time, I went to pursue a MBA or a master's in business, and that was the result of also sort of knowing what I didn't know and trying to surround myself with folks who could help me find the answers. And so that's another really important part of growing your skill set. You'll do this today as well as for the rest of your career, but really being able to be bold, right, and pursue the things even if you don't know the answer right away.
There's a lot of times when I don't know the answer right away. So I'm glad that there's lots of smart people around I can ask for help and lots of cool resources that I can go to learn more. Cool. Well, thanks so much for sharing your perspective on that. For our next question, I would like to ask Chris and Paul, how do you keep informed on the latest technology that you need to do to be effective in your jobs?
I would say I read a lot. And so I kind of start my morning reading, listening. I love podcasts and listening to those and kind of staying informed. And part of my learning, though, is getting hands-on. I really like to, I've been an engineer my whole career. I still play with things. I farm cryptocurrency over to the left. I play with a lot of interesting technologies just to kind of, I like that sort of visceral feeling of being able to play with it, understand it, get that hands-on experience. And I also like, just reading about what's out there and what people are learning and doing. And this is a constant thing. I think I start every day with it. I have conversations with other people that are passionate about the same things I'm passionate about. And so it's, and then you can bring that into your work. You can bring the things you're passionate about in your life and technology and bring it into the workplace and see how you can, and if you can do that, that's sort of the best of both worlds. You get to sort of, like I said, play with the fun toys at work, and get to innovate with technology. So I just think it's a continuous thing. I like going to conferences. I know that's been tough over the past year. A lot of the engineers on our team have liked that kind of interaction where you get to you get inspired. When you get to talk to other people that are having the same problems as you are, going through the same struggles. Even at work. It really just inspires you knowing that there's a community of people out there that share the same passions as you, and so that's a great way to just stay engaged with technology. Try not to get burnt out with so much change, because I would say careers in technology involve a lot of change, and that can change is hard for everyone, for most people, and building the community around it, getting support as you're learning and trying to stay close to the changes, I think are really helpful. And so, yeah, it's a mix of just, self-learning and connecting with people. And that's more or less how I stay connected today.
Paul, what about you?
Yeah, I think one of the cool things about my job is that I touch on things all across different vehicle systems and across different technologies. And nearly everybody that I work with is an expert on something that I know maybe relatively little about in comparison. So as you're constantly dealing with new areas in your job and new things, it's an opportunity to collaborate with your coworkers and try and learn from them more about the technologies that they're experts on, and so that you can at least have some small percentage of their knowledge on the topics that you can make use of that. So yeah, there's always lots of outside sources of information and suppliers you can talk to and conferences and stuff, but I don't think there's any real substitute for kind of the opportunity and depth of learning that you can get with the people that you're working directly with.
Thanks, Paul. Okay, for our next question, I would like to ask, what classes or life experiences should someone interested in your career path seek out? So maybe, Paul, you can take this one too, and then we'll bounce it to Sergio.
Sure. Well, I think anybody that's interested in a engineering career path would really benefit from extracurricular design competitions. So one thing a lot of high school students participate in is FIRST Robotics. So that's a great opportunity to work in a group, be creative, get kind of hands-on in terms of building things. And there's a lot of similar stuff that you can do in college. So one activity I participated in college was called Formula SAE, where you actually get to design and build and race a car. So you build a race car, which is pretty awesome. And it's a great way of being recruited into the automotive industry. And there's a lot of similar competitions. There's things like Solar Car and really even outside of extracurriculars, other hands-on stuff you could do is like shop classes. So even if you're on a path of going to college, doesn't mean that you shouldn't want to learn to use a lathe or wood shop or other things where you get those kind of hands-on skills. I really recommend it.
And yeah, to bounce off of Paul there, I'll give a specific example and a more general one in terms of skills and experiences. I think the first one, and looking at the agenda here, it's coming up for the students, is to learn to code. With the way that the industry, not just the sports industry, but every industry is changing, programming, technical ability, learning to code is becoming more and more and more important every single day. So it's not for everyone. Like I'm lucky that I picked up on it pretty well. My sister did not. She's a couple years younger than me. But at least having exposure to it and knowing at least how, for example, those self-driving cars work, or how someone like me that looks at basketball stats all day does their job, I think would be super helpful early on. The more general one, I think, is pursuing experiences that allow you to understand a variety of different fields, what Chris was saying earlier about problem solving and critical thinking, really, really, really important, at least in my career so far, to have just taken on opportunities in so many different areas. I was part of an organization that tried to get students to come to sporting events at the university that I went to, because it was a really small school. We didn't have the U of M, the Michigan State, the sports culture that exists at bigger schools. But I was also a part of a film class, for example, that helped me understand how film has shaped society over time. And I think becoming well-rounded in that sense allows you to complement the STEM skills, the technical skills that you may learn in your coding classes, science classes, and make you a better problem solver in addition to that technical skill.
So cool. All right, Anna and Gabe, I have one more question for you both. What would you say you like most about your job, and what would you say you like least about your job?
It would be really easy for me to say that the thing I like best is blowing stuff up, because I do get to do that. It is really fun. I think that's probably what I would have said if you would have asked me a few years ago. But I think that what I've learned is that in my job, I get to connect with other people. So I don't just connect with the students and the learners that experience our programs, but it's also kind of exposed me to this network of other nonprofit and other corporate and technology-driven partners that the Science Center gets to work with. So a big part of my job is designing these new programs. So we partner with a lot of local corporations, places like Quicken Loans and their computer science department, corporations like the auto companies. If they want to bring a new experience to our exhibit floor, I get to meet these people, work with them to kind of design an experience that would be fun for a learner, because working in the Science Center and museum world is about inspiring others to be curious about STEM. So we just want to kind of spark that moment of curiosity. We want to instill confidence into students and even into adults too. I think that adults can be some of the people who are least confident when they hear something like STEM or science, technology, and math, if it's not something that they've pursued professionally, that they think they don't use it or that they shouldn't want anything to do with it. But that's not the case, because STEM is a part of everyone's everyday life. And so when I blow something up, right, there's science there. If you watch YouTube videos of people building giant contraptions, explosions, engineering, all of that is STEM, right? And so we want to explain that to people, that STEM is a part of everything you do. And so the thing I like most is just having those moments of connection with other people. The thing I like least, man, that's hard to pick. I feel like I really do enjoy everything about my job. There are things that are harder than others. So I think that, with every job comes, clerical work, things that, keeping track of data and metrics, but you pick up tips and tricks, and I think that spreadsheets have actually become pretty fun to me. If you would have asked me a few years ago, I would have said that spreadsheets sound terrible and boring, but now I think I'm pretty savvy with the spreadsheet, and so it's actually become a pretty fun part of my job, which sounds kind of funny.
Gabe, what about you?
Yeah, I'm right there with Anna. I love my job, so I'll come with what I like most first. I really enjoy being able to think critically with groups of other smart people to solve hard problems. And in a team, when you're collaborating, we can work with people who are focusing on the color of a button, right? Or what font to show. There's so many different aspects of trying to make the Google that you see today. That collaboration includes engineers, right, who code the product. But sometimes that collaboration also includes real people, right? Whether it's educators or citizens or advertisers. We also think about equity, right? And hey, how do our products affect people of color? How do our products affect people with disabilities? How can we make sure that we're designing something that will make their life or their experience on the internet better? And so I think at the end of the day, that makes me feel really good about my work, because I'm solving a problem that will actually affect the way people use the internet and go about their lives. In terms of what I like least, it's hard sometimes to make tough decisions, especially on things that you're passionate about and that you put a lot of work into already. But sometimes, we have to go back to the drawing board on things and make decisions on what things we will cut or what things won't make it into the final version. At Google, we like to say, fail fast. So put lots of effort into finding the right solution, and then being able to make that decision together that this isn't the right solution, and maybe we need to create something else so that we can deliver the best experience for our users.
Okay, so students, I'm going to ask one more question to our panelists and then turn it over to you. So if you have any questions you'd like to ask our speakers, please go ahead and start typing them in the chat. So panelists, my last question is for everyone to wrap up. What piece of advice would you give your high school or college self? So looking back and knowing what you know now, what piece of advice would you give your high school or college self? So we'll do the reverse order of our introduction. Let's start with Paul and then go back down the line.
Sure. I think when I was in high school, I had this vision of a STEM career being sort of antisocial. Like I was gonna sit in front of a computer by myself, designing stuff, and I wouldn't really have to deal with people. So it was really the opposite of that. You're being successful in the STEM field in a lot of cases is really dependent on your ability to collaborate with other people and to communicate, work well as a group. So it's not an antisocial profession at all whatsoever.
Gabe?
I agree with Paul. I think in high school, I definitely thought that if I wanted to be in a career where I could collaborate with people and was a sort of a lively environment, that would not be a career in STEM. And it couldn't be further from the truth. I think being able to be well-rounded and again, sort of just dive into your passions and things that interest you, remain curious and bold, are the things that I would tell my high school self. And I think that, that path leads you to a place where you can create change and add lots of value for the people around you. And so that could be anywhere within science, technology, engineering, math, and the arts, as Dr. Tanya Matthew mentioned earlier, right? There's that STEAM component. So always stay curious and you'll find a place to add lots of value, especially in STEM.
Chris?
Yeah, I love Paul and Gabe's answer too. It's a little bit about engineering is definitely really any career right now is about communication, collaboration, teamwork. I guess the advice I'd give myself is, don't be afraid to take some risks. I had friends with fun ideas and, maybe, I would say no. And I think looking back, I would say, it's okay. You have some time to take risks, learn from your mistakes. That's the time to do it, honestly. I think it could be good advice. I love the staying curious too. That's a really great point, but yeah, I think that's the small piece of advice I'd give my former self.
Anna, what about you?
I think the piece of advice I would give myself is to just keep learning about the things that interest you. Even if it seems small or insignificant, I think that it's really easy sometimes as you are starting to decide on what your career might be to focus in on something that's really, really specific. But if there's something that you're interested in, I found that kind of building yourself a well-rounded skill set, listening to podcasts about things that interest you, whether they're related to your job or your studies or not, is a great way to just kind of expand your mind. It forces you to ask questions. And I find that the more passionate you are about things, the more you want to tell others. And telling others or being able to explain things to others and share your passions is going to bring you success no matter what career you end up in. So really stick to your passions, learn more and more. There's no such thing as too much knowledge.
And Sergio, you kicked us off. Let's have you wrap us up. What advice would you give your high school or college self?
I mean, everyone has already said some fantastic stuff. I think for me, STEM is pretty intimidating. And, hearing about coding and hearing about engineering and math, especially at a young age, I know for me was really intimidating. I didn't know where to start. And the one thing I would say is don't be intimidated, be confident in yourself, but also understand that people like us, the reason why myself and the other 4 panelists are here is because we want to help. We want to help you. We want to answer questions for you. We want to be there if you have a question about learning. So don't be intimidated. Ask questions. Be your own advocate and use the resources of people around you, because that's what we're here for. We want to see you succeed. We want you to be our boss one day. And you're on that path. So continue on it.
That's awesome. Okay, we're gonna look at the questions in the chat from the students, but I think I should probably just start by asking you the question that everybody is thinking. Sergio, do you know Blake Griffin?
So I started with the Pistons in November. Unfortunately, because of COVID, there's been little interaction between people in my department and the team. However, if anyone is a Phoenix Suns fan, I know all the Phoenix Suns players. So for whatever that's worth.
Okay, I guess that counts. Okay, Jasmine, do we have questions from our students?
I think most of them are exploring fun new technologies. One person asked, can we create an exosuit? So maybe a fun question here was, if you're given a big problem and you have to invent something, how do you approach how to invent something like that? Identifying the needs and designing something.
Yeah, I could maybe speak to that a little bit. You know, whenever you're looking at inventing a new device, you have to think about what problems are you trying to solve? You know, what are the requirements for it? So if you have a Iron Man suit, you know, are you trying to protect against certain weaponry, or how fast does it have to fly? So you really start with what are your objectives for it, and break it down into to meet those objectives, what capabilities we'll have to have. So if you're going to have a metal robotic body, you know, what metal are you going to make it out of? Well, that depends on what you're trying to solve. Are you trying to keep it lightweight? Are you trying to have a certain level of protection? How strong does it have to be? So really, a lot of basics of engineering is taking those kind of high level end goals and then translating it down to the little details of how you might accomplish it.
Anything else to add from our other panelists?
Always helpful to, you know, look at what's out there, see what's been done. You know, there are things that people have tried, and you know, a lot of science is based on things that, you know, people have done in the past, and you build upon and make even better or take further. So that's a huge part of software engineering. You know, open source. We look at what projects are out there. Can we get involved? Can we extend it? Can we make it better? Can we see someone's great idea, get inspired, and then extend upon that and make it better? And I think some cool technology like an exosuit or an Iron Man suit, you know, I don't think Tony Stark created that from scratch. I'm sure he was building upon other great works and other great minds. I'm certain of it. So that's I would just add that to what Paul said. I thought it was great.
Fantastic.
Awesome advice. Thank you all.
Okay, that wraps up our STEM Day career panel right on time. So we're going to take a little break. And when we come back at noon, we're going to have our students try their hand at learning how to code, like Sergio said, or learning how to do fun, cool stuff in spreadsheets, like Anna said. So Jasmine, how should the students join our next session when it's time at 12 o'clock?
Yes, thank you to all of our panelists for speaking with us today. We have divided you out so that you can get a little bit more of a personalized experience with your art projects or your coding projects. And so if you are still here, your teachers already have links to the main meeting rooms, and we'll post these in each of the meeting rooms as well. But if you want to do the coding project where you get to animate your name, like make a Google logo but out of your name, that will be one of the computer science coding lessons that we're offering. And if you're in 5th through 8th grade, you can pick this first link. If you're in 9th through 12th grade, you can pick the second link. If you would rather make an art project in Google Sheets, kind of like a paint by number using something called conditional formatting, then please choose the first link if you're in middle school or 5th through 8th grade, and in high school for the second link. That one you do need a Google account or a spreadsheet program in order to be able to use. So if you don't have either of those, feel free to join the Animate Your Name session.
Awesome. Thank you again to our panelists for sharing their time and their wisdom and their experiences with us today. We're so happy that you could join us, and we hope to see you again at a future event. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.